So we just finished up with the Xbox showcase. I am joined by Nate the Hate, and we were going to give some of our quick impressions and thoughts and reactions to what just happened. Like, it legitimately just ended a few minutes ago. So I did highlight some of the announcements here. I wrote all of them down, and I'll go line by line in Newswave tomorrow. But in this case, I just wanted to get some of the highlights and some of our thoughts on the big titles here, especially from Microsoft from a first-party perspective. But Nate, how we doing over there?
I mean, still trying to really compose all my thoughts and feelings on what Microsoft just showed, because I think one would be right to say this was arguably the biggest June showcase Microsoft has had in terms of Xbox Game Studio support.
This was a pretty good showing for him. I will say this might be you're saying it might be like one of the top ones. I mean, it's hard to argue with that right now. I will say a lot of the stuff we saw here is kind of the stuff they showed us before just coming to fruition seemingly now. Whereas before they'd have maybe a CG trailer to show us or something and no release date, no release window, nothing. Here, though, we did at least get some release years. We'll talk about the release dates that may have been missing, but you're right. It does seem like the acquisitions are coming together here, as we saw Bethesda, Activision, and of course Microsoft's just studios all coming together for this presentation that was, by my count, an hour and 20 minutes. So about 80 minutes or so. And I will admit that 80 minutes felt like it went by pretty quick. They went trailer to trailer, right? There were a few times, I think Phil Spencer was on stage at one point, Matt Booty was on stage, and then Sarah Bond, right? And those are like the main ones.
Yep, they each came out, they did their little presentation, minor speech, just highlighting what they really want to focus on. But yeah, it was just three interruptions by the three main figureheads of Xbox. Otherwise, it was well paced and it just went trailer to trailer or gameplay to gameplay. And it did go by exceptionally fast, which you could say definitely speaks to maybe the quality of the games that were on display. Even when we hit the middle, where typically these presentations seem to hit a rut, this still seemed as though it was moving at a fairly quick pace and there was no true lull. Maybe the lull would have been the games as a service, which would have been Sea of Thieves, Elder Scrolls Online, Fallout 76, the typical and usual suspects that we always see in the Microsoft presentations.
Let's see, they started out with let's be real, it's their biggest game. It's Microsoft's biggest game. They paid a ton of money for it, specifically Call of Duty Black Ops 6. It was here. They opened with it. They also are doing a full direct around it. Makes sense. Again, it's coming out this holiday. It's the Black Ops branding, which is incredibly popular. Treyarch is pushing what looks like definitely a better campaign than we had last time. Like for Modern Warfare 3, I'll say that was not a good campaign. This, they say it's in the 1990s after the Cold War ends. The campaign with Treyarch and Raven seemingly working on this title. Zombies will be in the game, and they're going to do parity for Call of Duty across all platforms. That includes the betas, which, to be fair, they've kind of locked themselves into that anyway with all the stuff that happened with the FTC hearings. Like, they're kind of have to do that. So they announced it, but it's like, well, we have no choice really. October 25th, though. So we're rolling, of course, into the end of October with a big time release for Microsoft. And I will say we play Call of Duty Warzone from time to time, and I think Black Ops coming back here, Black Ops 6, they will have some other Warzone thing for it too. But I am very interested in this campaign because I think they're going to push some boundaries here.
Yeah, I haven't played a Call of Duty campaign in quite a while, but this one seems as though it's going to definitely push the boundaries, as you said. And I'm interested in how they approach some of those narrative standpoints, because what we saw in the trailer kind of felt dark.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is? I think right now it's because they said in the 1990s, a lot of a lot of gamers now who are a bit older, 35, 40, 45, somewhere in there. I saw people in the chat mention they're saying this is getting to a point where I've lived through this technically, and now I'm seeing it here, like you see it on the news or whatever. Like it's something you're really seeing kind of play out here in a video game format. And again, that the realism of Call of Duty is to a level where it's like, wow, that looks real. Like, so I am curious if they're going to cause some controversy with this one. I think they will. So it's going to be one of those situations where they see them in the news for a mission or some kind of subject matter that they attempt to tackle in this game. So be interesting. And we're going to, again, see the multiplayer, zombies, that sort of thing with the direct that is ongoing. Okay. This so there's two games for me that were like my games of the show. This is one of them. Doom: The Dark Ages, 2025, right? Id Soft showed up like they meant it. They you needed to know they were here because I heard Doom: The Dark Ages, of course, with the rumors that it was going to be medieval times. I'm picturing how that's going to work, and I'm thinking of like mostly you just walking around with a sword or your I don't know, your crossbow. Uh this looks like yes, they're going back to the medieval times, but it's still Doom. Like you're still shooting like these crazy contraptions and guns, and you have like this, what was this, a spinning shield blade thing that you're just like it's ricocheting around and coming back to you. You're in a big mech. It's just completely out there, and I love it.
Yeah, Doom: The Dark Ages, that was an exceptionally strong first showing. The range of weapons they had shown us, the scope of the environments itself with the amount of enemies, and then how it pivoted to you flying on a dragon.
Yeah, the dragon. What
It,
was that?
it just felt like everything Doom was just cranked up to 11. And I mean, I'm really looking forward to this game. It was just a great first impression. I just want to see how much chaos and carnage Dark Ages can give us, and how many more unique weapons we're going to see that are inspired and based upon like medieval weaponry. Because the shield,
Yeah,
I think he also had the what's the weapon called that has the spiked ball?
the mace.
Yep. Yeah, the mace. He had the mace you saw, and he was just beating the demons with it. Like, are we going to get more swords? Are we going to get like a halberd? What else are we going to get here? So it feels as though it just feels very creative.
Is very creative, yeah. With that inspiration from like the like medieval times, Dark Ages, right? Obviously, Doom:
Yeah.
The Dark Ages. So,
I
I
mean,
uh, I like what I saw there.
yeah, and the dragon appearing was that was very unexpected. So I want to see just how wild and crazy they go with this game because they definitely set a good tone with that first gameplay presentation.
State of Decay 3. I put that down. CG trailer. I basically the only note I really took was what you said, and the game exists. That's still kind because like they announced the game a while ago, it disappeared. There were rumors that there were struggles or something at the studio. So I guess this is a way to just instill confidence that it does still exist. But
I mean,
these CG trailers, it's hard to really take anything away from it when they didn't have a bunch of new information to really share. I don't know. No release
I
date window, nothing.
I think that was the odd play around State of Decay 3 because they did put out that they're going to show, I believe, 15 minutes of gameplay in just a couple of days. But I don't see why this wouldn't have been the proper venue to give us at least, I'm not even saying give us 10 minutes, but give us 90 seconds of gameplay that gets us interested in then watching that gameplay presentation in just a few more days. Give us
Yeah.
something to kind of whet our appetite over and then go for the full meal. Instead, you just showed us a CG trailer where if you're not familiar with the State of Decay franchise, you watch that trailer and you didn't walk away with anything saying, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to check out that gameplay. I want to see a deeper look at it. You just saw another CG trailer that didn't show much of anything. And I'm also saying that as not a fan of State of Decay as a franchise, and State of Decay 3 is definitely not a game that is catering to me. But I would have loved for them to give me just a little bit of reason to watch the 15-minute gameplay in again, just a few more days to see if maybe this is a title that would potentially interest me. But as it stands, I'll just wait for that gameplay to come out, read some impressions, maybe give the video a quick glance over, and, move on. But they definitely should have shown something of more substance during the showcase.
Starfield Shattered Space DLC 2024.
Mhm.
I mean, they showed more of it. It's fine. I'm surprised. This is one of the ones that I'm actually surprised there wasn't a release date attached to it. I thought this, along with a few other ones we'll get to, would have had release dates, but it didn't. So
Yeah,
I'm not really sure. I mean, I played Starfield with the newest patch, and it does run 60 frames per second and stuff on the Series X, which is cool. But I thought they would have had something a bit more prepared for launching Shattered Space and showing us the release date here.
yeah, the gameplay they showed for Shattered Space definitely looks far more interesting than Starfield's base game because you had like these cloaked alien creatures. It almost looked a
Mhm.
little more action oriented, but obviously this is a curated trailer, So we have to see whether or not that will translate into the expansion release itself. But it was definitely caught my interest more than I would say the base game did. So I'm interested in how they are expanding upon the lore and just the universe itself from Starfield with this expansion. Would have loved to have gotten a release date, but I guess that reconfirmation that it is coming in 2024, maybe they just have a bit of hesitancy of aligning their schedule because as we saw, there's a lot of games coming later this year from Microsoft Studios and they all were just given 2024. We still have to have the dates for Indiana Jones and Avowed, and then you factor in Starfield. Maybe they're trying to pace these games out. Even, I think the only game we got from Xbox Game Studio with a release date was Flight Simulator, which is coming out in November.
Hey, a big MVG Flight Simulator fan. Probably standing up on his chair when that was going on. Fallout 76. It's kind of a shame they obviously misjudged how popular the Fallout series was going to be on Amazon. But at least Fallout 76 it's getting a lot of new players. So they have Skyline Valley coming out June 12th. That's soon, but would have been nicer if they had something a bit more, whether it's a spin-off of Fallout or, obviously not Fallout 5, but just anything else Fallout related. But hey, Fallout 76 players, a couple more days, you'll have Skyline Valley. So there's that. Okay, so South of Midnight, Nate. We got a pretty good look at this. This is a game coming out in 2025. Yes. They just gave us the year. Mm-hmm. And it had like a big talking catfish that your mark said looked weird. But they're doing this thing, at least it was in the cutscenes. Like they didn't do it in gameplay, but it had like this strange frame rate going on where it was almost like stop motion kind of is how they were playing around with it. At least that's like they lowered the frame rate down even below 24 frames it looked like. And I think that's what they were going for, was for it to look choppy on purpose. And kind of an artistic choice. But then they go into the gameplay, third person action style game. There's some adventure elements where you're jumping and lunging and then gliding and you're climbing up the different buildings and parkouring around. The combat though looked pretty cookie cutter though. I will say that. Like it looked pretty basic. So I'm thinking it's not necessarily going to be as reliant on the combat as opposed to the adventure side of things. Unless they just showed us like a really small piece of the rest of the combat. I'm not sure what to take away from that part.
Yeah, combat definitely felt as though it was the weakest aspect of the presentation for South of Midnight because visually the game looks very appealing. I love the artistic direction, even just the tone and setting the atmosphere that was on display here. But the combat does look very cookie cutter. It just looks like the standard type of combat system that you see in this style of game. But maybe it evolves. Maybe there are more intricate mechanics that you are introduced to as you get deeper into the game, and they just want to put out that very, here's the simplistic form that you start with. But if that is the case, that it does get deeper, I would have loved to have seen that at least play out in a trailer sequence of some kind. It's very different from what we typically see from this development studio, though. And yeah, it has my interest from a narrative and from that visual standpoint.
Okay, art style.
As long as the combat is competent, like even if it's Kenna levels of competent, where it's just you do your thing, maybe there's a flashy move here or there, maybe that'll be enough to keep players vested to go through the entire story and such.
Sure.
But I think it was a strong first showing overall for South of Midnight from that gameplay perspective, but there's definitely going to be a lot of questions of whether or not the combat system is going to be deep enough to keep people invested until the conclusion of the story.
I want to throw this out there just to recognize it. Metal Gear Solid Delta was there. Still no release date though, unfortunately. They didn't even commit to the year 2024, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, they didn't tell us 2025.
That game's not coming out this year.
Oh, that's what I was worried you were going to say.
If it was, they were going to throw 2024 in that trailer. It feels as though Konami's focused for the second half of this year is Silent Hill 2, and then hopefully Delta can come out in the first half of next year.
The game, so it does look like, as we figured, it's going to be like a 1-to-1 remake of Metal Gear Solid 3, which is fine because we've seen what happens when studios and publishers play around with games a little too much because they feel like they have to almost over-engineer the remake, and then we end up with what we have going on right now with Final Fantasy VII, right? In this case, hey, you want a better-looking slightly more modernized in terms of controls and maybe even narrative aspects for Metal Gear Solid
Mhm.
3. All right, here we go. We have Delta. Visually, I think it looks good. I think some of the animations look a little stiff for running, but they've said before, and they always have that disclaimer: early footage. Things could get better as we go. We anticipate it
Mhm.
too. So that's why I'm not necessarily knocking them for that part. But it's for Metal Gear Solid fans who were concerned that maybe Konami would mess around with Kojima's work or something. It looks like they're going to stick to it. So that for Konami's sake, that's probably a good idea.
Mhm.
We saw what happened with Metal Gear Survive.
Yeah, we can forget about Survive. But I
Well,
think I wonder if an element of the jank that we're seeing in some of the animations is because they are using the code or even just that blueprint from the original game, and they're just putting that new visual coat over it. And by using those existing animations and such, there's just some form of limitation that they're not able to overcome here.
could be. You might be onto something with that.
Because,
Yeah, I mean,
they're not going to do motion capturing and redo the entire game from that level. So if you really are just using that base and making it look better, you're still going to have some of those issues that we had going back to the PS2 or even the HD version. So I wonder if that's what's happening here.
I have Fable picked out here. We did get the release year for it, 2025. So we're a year or so away from the game coming out. I'm kind of thinking this is going to be almost a second half of 2025 release, just based on this game, because it does seem like the scope of
Mhm.
this title is pretty big. Like Playground is, I feel like really going for it with this one, and that's good. Fable does need that kind of a reboot.
Mhm.
I still have a lot of questions around this game, and I almost wonder if that's purposeful on their side, because we see the main character, the girl, and they are obviously using her as like a focal point for the whole thing. I was kind of wondering if they would have gone in the direction of you being able to craft or make your own character, but it looks like you're just gonna be playing as her, which all right, and that's fine. But I'm still trying to figure out how this game looks in game, like when you're playing it, because they keep showing us shots where it looks like you're playing the game, but we're still not really sure. Because if that is how the game looks with some of those shots, it is super impressive, like visually speaking.
Yeah. They're definitely doing that weird sequence blending of showing us in-engine cutscenes, not even cutscenes, just in-engine sequence like scenes, and then
Mhm.
going towards gameplay sequences where we're seeing some of the combat and just exploration. And if that is one-to-one gameplay, if that is someone playing the game, the controller is in hand, even on a dev kit, it looks fantastic. The
It still
lighting,
has
the
that
level of
tone, right?
detail.
That
Mhm.
kind of that silliness to Fable, but then they can get really serious if something is happening in the game that's like a major plot
Mhm.
point or introduction of a character. But they are still trying to have that sense of like not taking itself too seriously with some of these elements. So
Yeah, it still has that British humor to it, where
right.
you're gonna have just
Yeah.
random sequences, you're gonna kick a chicken, stuff like that. And it definitely has the essence of what the original Fable trilogy had to it. So when it comes out next year, I think there's gonna be a lot of hype, a lot of anticipation and expectation assigned to the game, and rightfully so. This was a major franchise going back to the original Xbox and in the
Yep.
Xbox 360 generation. So it's time to revive it and do it well, and it seems as though Playground is going to deliver on that promise.
Indiana Jones. There's one disappointing aspect to this for me, but the showing here for Indiana Jones is awesome. It feels like Machine Games sat down and watched all the Indiana Jones movies like 100 times, because this has that feeling of, yes, the cinematic experience to Indiana Jones from what they showed here, because it did kind of play out almost like a small section of a movie. But I just the way that they have the Troy Baker, who's doing Indiana Jones, like his voice, and like it sounds like Harrison Ford. He's done a very good job with that. And even the mannerisms of the characters that they have in the CG trailer. And then they did show us gameplay shots, which we've seen some of it anyway in the different
Mhm.
trailers when they first showed it. But this game looks awesome. Like I'm so
Yes.
excited for Indiana Jones, but they didn't give us a release date, and I don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah, they really needed a release date on this type of game. Like we said, Indiana Jones and Avowed, these games needed those release dates, even the Starfield DLC again. Because you want to create that sense of consistency, especially with Game Pass, that you're having these games come out in the next few months and you want to know when they're coming out. So, right now, following that showcase, if those games had release dates, you might say, okay, well, I have to get a Game Pass subscription in September when these games start to hit leading into the holiday season. Instead, right now, we're kind of left wondering when exactly are these games going to hit? But beyond that, Indiana Jones, as you said, it looks fantastic. They nailed the humor that you would get from the Indiana Jones movies. You see the villains just mocking American culture, making fun of Indy. Everything that this trailer had on display is what you think of when you think of Indiana Jones. And the gameplay still looks sublime. It looks as though Machine is going to deliver a masterful experience, which they always do. It just needs that release date. I want to know when I can play this game because this game has Game of the Year contender written all over it.
Mhm.
Unless something catastrophically goes wrong with the gameplay and the puzzles and just the overall tone, I don't see how this game isn't going to review exceptionally well and be on stage at the Game Awards later this year.
We had Avowed as well, which I still have the same impression as I did when they first showed it. I was kind
Yeah.
of thinking they might show some gameplay of the because one of the big criticisms was the melee combat didn't seem to have a lot of impact. They didn't really show much of that. So it is still 2024. I thought they were going to have a release date for this as well. We kind of went into this presentation thinking Avowed release date, Indiana Jones release date. We didn't get either of them, which is strange to me.
Mhm.
But I guess they're following it up with Xbox Wire posts in the next month or two, just highlighting each one with a release date. That's all I can think of.
It seems to be the play in terms of the release date handling. But yeah, Avowed, for this being its second showing, I still didn't walk away with any more confidence than I did during the first showing. It seems as though it looks like a competent game. It's just not blowing me away in any particular aspect. Visually, it looks pleasing, but the combat, I still have the same concerns I had going back to a few months ago, earlier this year. Narrative, I'm sure it's going to deliver. Obsidian, they are fantastic when it comes to writing story narratives for games. It's just going to be a question of is the combat system, will the magic system, all those in game systems translate to an experience that I want to stay vested in for the duration of the game itself? And right now, I don't know.
Okay. This is my other game. So I said there's two games of the show for me. The first one was Doom. The second one is Perfect Dark.
Did you
So
ever think you were going to be saying that?
I've been concerned. I mean, I think a lot of people have just because the initial showing of it was, a cinematic trailer. It's pretty straightforward, just to introduce it. And then it disappeared for 3.5 years.
And
And when that happens, there are concerns. Obviously, that'll come up because it's like,
right.
then we hear about the initiative. People are leaving the initiative and they're getting together with Crystal Dynamics, which actually that part made me feel a little better because I do believe Crystal Dynamics is still a talented studio. But they have Joanna jumping off the plane. They mentioned Carrington. I'm like, all right, Perfect Dark, here we go. We're gonna see what we have here. And they drop in and they do give us gameplay of it. First person, so they didn't like try to go, okay, well, we gotta do something different. It's gotta be third person. Nope, they are going full first person as they should with Perfect Dark. Spy espionage, heavy focus on that. And I really like it. Like the way they were showing her with she has like the voice analyzer, trying to hear different things, figure out ways to break into the institution. And like that whole part was her just trying to avoid combat. They have like the Mirror's Edge kind of vibe to it where she's parkouring around, jumping on the grabbing pipes to climb up them, somersaulting and running along walls. And then they get to the combat and it looks probably more fluid than all the other stuff
Anything.
leading up to it. Like it was crazy. Some of the stuff that was almost to where we're watching it and you said, is this or is this actual thing? Or are they just kind of playing it up here with the very controlled slice and cinematic where it's not actually going to look like that? I kind of think that's what it's going to look like.
I think everything we saw is true gameplay. That's how we're going to experience the game. And when you saw some of the shooting, she's hiding behind the fruit cart and the oranges were moving. And remember, going back to the start of this generation, people were making fun of Halo because the fruit didn't move. And these were oranges rolling around. But it captures that spy vibe, which is what I want from Perfect Dark. It feels as though it's going back to those roots from the N64 original, where she is just that. She is a spy. She has gadgets. You have the weapons, which appear to have the multi-featured aspect that we all
Oh,
came
really?
to
Because
love.
secondary fire.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
secondary fire, all of that. And it's just wild that we went from just last month in May. You had reports, you had the rumors saying Perfect Dark isn't in a good place. We had Direct Xbox that same week, and it was a topic. And I said, I'm hearing the complete opposite. I'm hearing it's in a really good place and that we will see it next month. And we saw it. And I don't think anyone was watching that trailer saying, I have concerns for this game. They looked at the trailer and said, Perfect Dark is back. And it's going in a whole new vision. You could say this is essentially being a complete reboot of the franchise. And I can't wait to see the story that they're going to tell here, because we only have kind of bits and pieces of what the narrative is going to be for Perfect Dark. If we go back to the original debut trailer in, what was that, 2020, and now with the gameplay here, it seems as though there's something about the, climate or the environment and weather, because each trailer has kind of highlighted like a dust storm of some sort, and it's her just infiltrating Datadyne and Carrington and stuff. And I can't wait to see what the story is going to be here, because Perfect Dark back on N64, you had aliens and such. So I wonder if that's
Yep.
also going to play a role here. But I think the gameplay they show, it set the tone. We know how the game's going to play. We have an idea of the direction of the game, and that's what they had to do with this presentation with Perfect Dark today. And I think they nailed it.
Oh, we got to go to space. We have to go to space in this game. Yeah.
Based on what we just saw here, I would not be surprised if we're doing combat in a rocket on our way to space and get into a space station.
That part though where the guy is like falling and she jumps, lands on him, and they fall off the second story, and she hits his helmet to knock him out, and his helmet cracks. Dude, that whole thing looked that whole sequence looked crazy. So
yeah, if we have that level of interaction with the enemies in the game where you can shoot them on a second story and they're falling over ledges, where you can then jump into a melee attack to finish them
he fell
off.
through, like it was all like destructible.
the
He
wood
fell through
broke.
it. That was crazy.
Yeah, if we have that level of interactivity in this game, oh man, Crystal Dynamics and the Initiative, they are cooking.
Yeah.
They're cooking something special.
It looked good. It looked good. It looked very good. So I'm keeping on that one. No release date. I think it's gonna. Based on what I saw there, I think it's gonna be a minute.
It feels like it's playing very similar to the playbook of Fable, though. Like Fable, we got that tone setter last year. This year, we got the Perfect Dark tone setter, which would suggest to me Perfect Dark is 2026.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, if they can get it out for 2025, that's great. But I'm kind of picturing we see it again next year, and they give us a 2026 release date or release year.
Well, I mean, I'm sure everyone is sitting there saying the sooner we can get Perfect Dark, the better. So if it is 2025, I can't wait to see the game again.
Yeah, it looked really good. That is like one of the standout. That might be the standout, because we had good like actual looks at gameplay. The whole thing. The only thing is missing, like I said, is some sort of release date window, anything. But at this point, I think everyone's just relieved to see it in a good state. So
yeah, especially I mean, again, going back to that rumor of just over a month ago saying the game wasn't in a good state, that there were a lot of concerns, that didn't have like a cohesive gameplay loop, that it wasn't coming together. This clearly showed the game is coming together, that it has a gameplay loop, that they have a direction. It basically dismissed all of the concern from 4 weeks ago.
We did have the Xbox Series X all digital. That is there. 2 terabyte Xbox Series X as well. They spent roughly 40 seconds on them before getting away from it. So they were not interested in talking much about it, which I wouldn't be either. So they're ready to go. Then they put over next generation, the idea of game preservation going forward, digitally, obviously, and seemingly backwards compatibility. But they didn't talk about backwards compatibility. I was kind of wondering if they would start dropping something in the Game Pass even today when it comes to the back catalog, but nothing. They just moved on. However, they did move on into the thing a lot of people were hoping to be announced here, just to see it. Gears E-Day. Now, I will tell you this, Nate, as we've been recording this, a press release came through for this game.
Okay.
So they did explain it a bit more. All right. Or they say the trailer introduces us to this defining moment in the Gears of War series that sees the fearsome Locust make themselves known with a brutal ambush from below against the world. They have they mentioned they'll follow younger versions of the series' original heroes, Marcus and Dom, as they begin their fight against the Locust invasion. Yes,
yeah, it's Emergence Day. It's a prequel to Gears 1.
The trailer looked like it was super intense. It was visceral. It was like up close, personal, the whole thing, him fighting for his life there. And it was good. I kind of thought they were going to do a little bit more than this. That's all. Like, it's good introduction, right? Mm-hmm. I kind of thought they were going to, because the way that they made it sound and how much time was left, I thought we might go 90 minutes with this show, and it seemed like they had 8 to 10 minutes left. And I was like, okay, CG trailer, and then they'll break in this a minute or two of gameplay or something. And unfortunately, they didn't do that in engine and like to show it off that way at all. But mm-hmm. I think it's great to see them maybe even go in this direction where we are going to see Emergence Day kind of play out in front of us.
That's what has me so excited about Gears of War Emergence Day here, is that when you play the original Gears of War and you compare it to 2 or 3 or even 4 and 5, Gears 1 was darker. It was gritty. It had more of a horror aspect to it. And this seems to be going back to basics. I love that idea. And even as you saw in the in-engine trailer, Marcus, he isn't battle hardened yet. He's not the hero that we were introduced to in Gears 1. And he was struggling against that one Locust. But kind of the piece of resistance to the trailer was the subtle play of Mad World with the chords playing. And it was immediately recognizable to any Gears of War fan. And it kind of made you wonder, like, okay, what's going on here? You have Mad World playing. This is Marcus. And then just to see the title screen come up of Gears of War E-Day, you knew exactly what it was referencing. So I can't wait to see them go back to that darker feel of what made Gears of War such a special game when it came out on the 360, because that's what I've wanted from Gears of War since the original trilogy. No disrespect to Gears 4 and 5 with the Kate trilogy, which I guess we're not going to see a conclusion to, but I really want to see how they approach Emergence Day, because this could be a really dark, visceral, just brutal approach to how they go with this story and even the gameplay. What type of Locust are we going to see? Are they going to be Locusts that we didn't see in the original trilogy that we wiped out? Are we going to see more of the Brumax and stuff that they always referenced in the first game, and maybe they appeared once or twice in the game itself? But now you can have some epic battles, and I wonder if we're going to see General Rom.
More civilization too. I mean, if it's E-Day and it's like just really just starting to happen, you're gonna have more out in the street, stuff happening all around you while it's oh man, that could
you're gonna have more of the grub holes come up. You're gonna see the cities completely sink into this invasion. So you could just be in a city on patrol and have the building sink through, which they reference in the trailer itself. Is that once Marcus did kill the Locust, just a huge sinkhole below him. I think I'm really excited for what they're going to do with E-Day, because it's kind of been expanded upon in some of the books. There's lore that touched on exactly how we led up to Emergence Day, but now to be able to play it out and see everything unfold, I can't wait.
Yes, to me that's obviously one of the big showings there, but I think looking back at this showcase for Microsoft, it was really good. Like this is indeed one of their best. It might be their best at this point. Well, we have to see how it plays out. Like, so for example, if Perfect Dark was shown here and it's not out till 2027, we're going to look back on this and be like, oh, like, maybe it was like how we look back now at that show where they said everything's going to come out in the next 12 months. At that time, when we saw it, we said, wow, this is incredible. All this stuff's coming out in 12. And it's like, okay, well, Redfall came out. So yeah, but the only real issues I had with the show are the fact that they didn't have release dates for games that I want to play that they showed us. So it's like, well, I mean, they showed me games I want to play. I just need this 2024 narrowed down for Indiana Jones, for example, right? Like, so
yeah,
Yeah, to me, this is a good showing for them. I got this thing at like 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, just instant reactions. I'm thinking around the same, like a 9 out of 10. The release date, I would say, is really the more significant detractor. I wanted release dates on the games coming out in 2024. I'm fine with giving games, 2025 windows with Fable because we know we're going to see that game again early next year when they do the developer direct, be it in January or February of next year. We know we're going to get a deeper look at the game then. I just wanted those 2024 games to have release dates. Otherwise, when you look at the game, the game lineup on paper, a brand new Doom, first look at Perfect Dark, Gears of War E-Day, a deeper look at Fable, Indiana Jones, Avowed, Starfield expansion. Wow. That is a
And Call of
good
Duty. Call of
lineup.
Duty's technically in there too.
Yeah, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which is definitely impressing people. That's a really good lineup of games. I don't see how anyone could watch that lineup and walk away from that show and say, I'm not impressed. Unless the games literally have no interest to you whatsoever. I think this was easily Microsoft's best presentation of the generation and possibly dating back to the Xbox 360 generation because there was a lot of strong games on display, a wide variety of first party games, and just what's coming to Game Pass. Third party representation, you could definitely make a case of you wish it was a little stronger in terms of some of the partners being, displayed there. But this was a fantastic presentation from Microsoft.
Yeah, I have to give him credit on this. This is a good one. And unfortunately, the only big downside is no Banjo. So MVG has to live to fight another day. There's always next year. But yeah, I like what I saw here. I think it's a good presentation. Looking forward to getting some of the release dates. But those are our overall thoughts for the Xbox presentation. That's Nate the Hate. Check him out on his channel. Of course, also check us out over on the Spawncast Network. And we're on the Spawncast channel. We'll have the entire stream. I'll try to post that up later on today if you missed it. And that's going to do it here for us. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time.